there's two groups over here. The people that are pushing it, okay, from the treasury minister, from the legal minister, from the left wing, their nightmare is that the Haredim are going to join the army. Because they're saying what you're doing in the country, you're doing in the Knesset. And the Frum community, I can't ignore. There's a big community that says, listen, we're fighting our battles alone in the army. We're fighting what's going to be Shabbos in the army, what's going to be Kashrus in the army, what's going to be Tznius in the army, we're fighting alone. Please, 60,000 people of yours are going to join us, and the whole thing's going to change. The truth of the matter is...
Before we dive in, we need your help. If you're watching this, we want to know where it is. Are you in Israel? Are you not in Israel? Which country are you located? Now, let me explain why we need this. It helps us understand where our audience is, and we can make a better podcast with more targeted guests and more accurate conversations. So go ahead and let us know. You can also comment in Spotify. We have a great episode. In this episode, I sat with Yitzhak Pindrus, an Israeli politician from United Torah Judaism, a political party representing the Ultra-Orthodox community in the Israeli Knesset, which, if you don't know, Knesset is the parliament of Israel. He learned in Yeshiva and served in the IDF, giving him a rare firsthand perspective on both worlds. As a former mayor of Beitar Illit and deputy mayor of Jerusalem, he's uniquely qualified to fight for and weigh in on ultra-Orthodox rights in Israel. In this conversation, we're going to uncover a side to Israel you maybe don't really see and whether or not there's a real problem in the IDF. Wait until the end for my personal story with him. Thank you again to our wonderful sponsors, BitBean, the Torah app, and Wheels to Lease. This episode is in loving memory of Miriam Sarah Bas Yaakov Moshe and Shimon David ben Yaakov Shlema. Here we go. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. A lot to talk about, Yitzhak Pindrus, but before we get into our topic, could you just give us a small background of where you're from and how you got to your position that you are in today?
I was born in Yerushalayim, and as you see on my English, for American parents. My father came here when he was 18 to Yeshiva, to the Mir Yeshiva. My mother came here to Beis Yaakov when she was 17. And I was born in Yerushalayim, grew up in Yerushalayim, and moved to Beitar when I got married. Beitar was then a small town with 30 families. I was there for 17 years. I was there involved in Askonas part of the years after I left Koilel. I was the deputy mayor after the mayor for 6 years, and for 1 year again the deputy mayor. Then I was in Yerushalayim for 10 years as deputy mayor. And 5 years ago, since then, I'm here in the Knesset.
Okay, so there's a few conversations I want to have with you, but let's start off with the challenges. I think, Israel is multifaceted, and there's a lot of different people, a lot of different backgrounds, all trying to accomplish different things. What do you personally see as the biggest challenge for Israel as of right now?
If you're talking about in generally, Israel needs Nisim, and they have, and Baruch Hashem, there was Zeicha to Nisim. I had a couple of days ago a conversation with students, non-Jewish, that came from Italy. And after an hour of conversation about the economy in Israel, the security in Israel, the challenges we had in Gaza and Lebanon, with Iran, and they were asking me, okay, so just tell me, how does it work technically? You went through a war, it cost 150 billion shekels, the war cost. The Israeli budget is 500, 600 billion. And why did the economy collapse? And not only the economy didn't collapse, the last 2 months in collecting taxes, Israel's doing very, very well. And how could it be? So I said to them, we're the chosen nation, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu likes us. By the end of the day, that's the real answer. Israel is going through more difficult times, more difficult challenges, but there is siyata d'shmaya. We hear after 15 months without the big enemies, most of them are dead already. If you take Nasrallah, you take Haniya, you take Sinwar, you take all these cute people all around of us that we're talking and giving all these speeches that Israel is going to disappear. They disappeared. Their families, their relatives, they're not here anymore, which is siyata d'shmaya. But there's a challenge here since 48, and even before, trying to change the identity of the Jewish nation. Are we Jews because of Matan Torah, or are we Jews because we, like any other country, we have a language, we have a state, and we have a that. And that's something that we have to deal on a daily base here in the Knesset. And those are challenges in everything. It's in education, it's in work, for anything you'll think about as a challenge on that issue. And not only for our community, for the future of the Jewish nation, for the future of for people in Eretz Yisrael, for the future of the traditional people in Eretz Yisrael, the future of the Jewish nation.
I'd love to dig into like practically like what you do on a day-to-day basis in terms of your role. Like, how would you define your role at the Knesset?
I'll tell you, Israel went through, I would say, in the battle I tried to describe before, three basically times that the challenges changed. Okay, in the beginning, I would say, they thought that it's something that's going to disappear. Okay, the yeshivas are going to disappear, the Orthodox community is going to disappear. So they basically really almost ignored it. And just to get an idea, over the age of 75, there's maybe 2% what's called Haredim in Eretz Yisrael, right? What's called Yeshiva line in Eretz Yisrael, 2% over the age of 75. Under the age of 10, we're close to almost 25% of total people. So that, like I would say, changed the challenges. So the first time was they thought that they're going to disappear. The second time they said, okay, let's fight it because they're growing too much, and let's see how we could fight it because it's not disappearing on their own. And the third kufa is they're terrified. They're terrified. They're frightened. They're frightened that this community is keeping on and growing, and what's going to be the future of the Israeli state again, because they're convinced that if the Torah demands what the Jewish nation is. Kabbalah Torah demands what the Jewish nation is. The communities are keeping on and growing. It's something that terrifies them. What they use, and that's what we do in the Knesset on a daily basis, is all kinds of regulations to try to make it more difficult to open a school, more difficult to open a yeshiva, more difficult to be a yeshiva man. And they do it with very nice big words of legal bureaucracies or things like that. And we go from a committee to a committee, one after each other, to try to stop these things. And these are things that are, like I say, on a daily base. They use other tools also. They go to the Supreme Court to fight it, and to fight regulations, and to fight things that are making easier for Bnei Torah to live in Eretz Yisrael, or easier to educate your children in the way you want to educate them, or to have some kind of system like that. And those are things that we have to do on a daily basis.
I know it's very multifaceted and complicated, but like, what's the sides? So what's each side saying? Like, what are the yeshiva world saying, and what's the world that's saying, hey, we don't want you sitting and learning. We want you joining the army. Like, what's each side of it?
I think we'll get to the army, but what I was trying to say is, before we're talking about the army, I'll give you a simple example, okay? A very simple example. Kindergartens. Kindergartens are run by cities, municipalities, with government funds all around the country. Now, officially in a kindergarten, you play with the same playground and the same techniques that you could do in a from kindergarten or the Freie kindergarten. Probably in a Freie kindergarten, they'll sometimes tell you what the Parshas HaShavua is. So the Haredi kindergarten, they'll tell you, or from kindergarten, they'll tell you more about Parshas HaShavua, big deal. But there's no real, things that you could say that affect the economy or things like that, okay? So they say plans, okay. If it's a public school, these plans are going to work over there. If it's not a public school, it's not going to work over there. Even by law, it's supposed to be the same. Okay, by Israeli law, again, because of the agreements that we made in 48, that from education should be part of the legal system. So they just give all kinds of plans. And now when you come and say, no, I want the same thing over here, and you come and fight in the Knesset, and you bring in a budget, and when you pull the bill of the budget, and you put in a budget for it, for kindergartens. So they go around and say again, no, there's a legal problem over here, there's a single paper over here missing, there's a single paper there missing. And then I'll go into elementary school, okay? Chinuch Hatzmoi by law is supposed to be sponsored 100%, just like the public school. That's the law in Israel. Okay? Chinuch Hatzmoi has at least 150,000 kids that are studying in the Chinuch Hatzmoi, and they're supposed to be the same as a public school. So they start with making a plan that it's going to work only in a public school. They say, okay, you're supposed to get 100%, but this is a specific program that we're doing in public schools. Then they make an agreement. The unions come and make an agreement on hiring the salaries of the teachers and say, you're not part of the union. So, okay, you're supposed to get 100%, but you're not part of the union. 3-4 years pass, you pass a bill and you say, okay, well, how much is missing? 300 million. Let's put the 300 million into the budget and we'll have the Chinuch Hatzmai getting money. They come and say, no, we can't do that. Have this regulation. You negotiate, you try to push it again. And again, the Knesset passed. And then they come to you and say, okay, but you know what? Out of 250 schools of the Chinuch Hatzmai, there's 5-6 schools that don't really learn, that are closer to Chadorim, right, to Yeshivas. They don't learn the whole curriculum that they're supposed to learn. So he says, okay, that's agreed. Don't give them the whole budget. No. Now the whole Chinuch Hatzmai can't get the budget because out of 250 schools, there's 6 schools that don't do the curriculum. I said such a long story that I don't know how much the listeners at home could even figure out, the whole long story I made. But just to make sure that what, by the end of the day, maybe, a group of people in some area are going to say, listen, we get better teachers in a public school, we get better teachers in that, maybe we'll change to a public school and forget about going to Chinuch Hatzmai. And I'm not talking about Kiruv schools that for sure it makes it more difficult for them, or for sure it gets. And it's a small example I brought for things that we go through on a daily base that we're trying to figure, and we have to make sure that, again, in the regulation, they should pull another idea that could stop us tomorrow.
So there's a lot of different backgrounds and different people having different goals. Between the left and the right, what do you think is the root of the difference? Is it black and white? Is it obvious what each side really ultimately wants over here?
The truth is like this. In Israel, like I started saying before, the ideas changed. After, I would say, the Oslo agreements in the 90s, okay? The disengagement in the years 2006, 2005, there's no really, and of course, after what happened to Chastera, there's no real left wing in Israel on, at least on issues, security or political issues. And that's what used to be for years, the difference between left and right. What it became, unfortunately, in Eretz Yisrael in the last years, and again, it's part of what I said before, they figured out we're not disappearing, and not only we're not disappearing, the Torah world is growing, and not only the Torah world, to be honest, the whole traditional world, from world is growing. And I'll bring the smallest example. You know how many yarmulkes today are in the Likud? And I remember years when I was younger, most of the people in the Likud were people like Olmert, Dan Meridor, Roni Milo. These are names maybe won't say so much for people out in America, but they were totally not connected to anything to have to do with Yiddishkeit. They were right-wing, and generally, but they had nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. And today, there's a lot of real from people with yarmulkes, okay, not Yeshiva-like, but people that were yarmulkes that want more Yiddishkeit, more traditional, and Eretz Yisrael to be more traditional, more Shabbos. I'm not saying the whole Likud, but in generally. And in generally, the whole country is changing, and they feel that that's their biggest threat. And what they use, their tool they use against is the progressive philosophies, the progressive ideas, which sound very good. I know that now in the United States it's a little bit changing, and for sure with Trump it's changing, but what happened years ago in America, they're trying to put it over here, okay? The ideas about gender, they call it human rights, but they use it against anything that has to do with Yiddishkeit. And all these ideas, all these progressive ideas, there's a difference they're trying to put in. They're trying to put in through, again, because they're losing their majority in the country. Like I said before, for both reasons, they're losing the majority. So what they're trying to push in is through the legal processes, going to Supreme Court. Reform organizations from America are going to court the whole time. Why you have your own cell phones? Why do you have your own daycares? Why do you have your own budgets? Why do you have your own rabbonim? Why are you... you name it, and they try to use that. Okay, and that's the reason that, in generally, we were for the reform. They wanted to make the legal reform. We understood that maybe it's not time yet because we have other challenges, but of course, as an idea, the Supreme Court is fighting us the whole time. The Supreme Court is very progressive. The legal advisors in each office are very, very progressive, and they're trying through that. And the people that are sitting in the offices, and the Treasury Minister, are very, very progressive, and they're very much trying to push Israel to be more left wing, okay, but on these ideas, less on the ideas of security, because over there they lost their case. Unfortunately, the Hamas, the PLO, Iran helped us, Hezbollah, they all helped us to get the case off the table, and that's when they lost the case. And that's the only thing they're trying to sell. And they're trying to sell hatred to the religious communities. And like I said again, regulations. So using all that together, the Supreme Court, using, like I said, officers that are sitting in the Treasury Minister, using legal advisors in each office, and having money coming from all these organizations and putting in and going to court against Yiddishkeit. And that brings us, like, again, challenges that we have on a daily basis.
We'll be right back to this week's episode of Inspiration for the Nation. What, you were expecting Yaakov? I'm doing an ad read with Yaakov. So I want to tell you about BitBean. Yaakov, you ready for a short interview?
Yeah, please.
How are you, by the way?
I'm good.
How is this episode going?
I think it's good. You started off very excited, so I hope it's not like a very sad episode.
No. Oh, whoops. Okay, so I have a somber message for you. No, there are a lot of businesses out there that are spending a boatload of money. I promise you. Don't get me wrong. They're making money, but their back-end systems are very antiquated. That means they're old, like me. Unlike you. Yaakov always tells me I'm old. Anywho, there's BitBean, right? BitBean will sit down with your company to figure out the processes that you have in place as it relates to software. So you could be a logistics company, right? And you manage your warehouse with some antiquated technology, but the different systems aren't talking to each other. Or, get this, you have payroll. You have 4 people because back in 2006, you had 4 people doing it. So you always had 4 people, but you don't realize, I'm doing a lot of the talking, which I like. You don't realize that those 4 people can be turned into one person with the benefit of technology. Get where I'm going with this?
Yeah, that makes a lot of
So
sense.
BitBean, what they do is they sit down with you and your team, understand your processes, and say, hey, by the way, software can help you with 3 of the 4 things that you're doing, and you can save this money with a one-time investment. No brainer.
But someone listening is like, oh, that's only for huge, crazy, big companies that could handle it.
I wouldn't say only. I'm not saying if you're a one-person shop that you need to be having a sit-down with them. Maybe yes, maybe no. But medium to bigger-sized companies should definitely be doing some level of conversation. What I like, they'll be transparent. If they feel that they can't help you, they're not going to give you a proposal, which I think is very beneficial. You have a link on the bottom where it shows the website. So we're going to put a link in the show notes, bitbean.com.
Yeah.
And there might be even a QR code to the side. You can scan it if you're using a smart TV. But I don't want to talk too long. Let's get back to the episode, and let's talk offline.
Okay. Now we're going to dive back in. But first, I've been using the Torah app every day, and it's completely changed how I consume Torah, making it easier than ever to stay connected no matter where I am. Whether I'm driving in my car, I'm at home, I'm in my office, I can tune in to Incredible Sharem for some of the best speakers out there. Just the other day, I was listening to Rabbi Leibowitz's 10-minute halacha, and it was the perfect way to get a quick, insightful Torah thought in a short amount of time. They have Daf Yomi, incredible selection of shirim, videos, and even full svarim with actual text and translation, which makes them different than most other apps you've seen. So you can learn in whatever format works best for you. And what's really amazing is that it's not just audio shirim. The app includes a massive collection of Torah texts all at your fingertips, so you can read, learn, and explore Torah in a whole new way. Even our Inspiration for the Nation podcast and Zevi and Zadie and Spirit of the Song podcast are available on there, along with so much more Torah content to help you grow. Best part, it's completely free, making Torah learning more accessible than ever. Honestly, I wish this app existed 20 years ago, because it would have made learning for me that much easier. Download the Torah app today at toraapp.org and start experiencing Torah in a whole new way. Now back to this week's episode. I'm curious what your response to this is. Does it make a difference what the American Jews or European Jews or any, Jewish people outside of Israel, like what they what they think, does that make a difference to like the tachlis, to the reality of like what the decisions you have to make in Israel? Is it part of the calculation?
There's two parts to it, okay? I would say there's two parts to it. First of all, they're playing a game. I met a lot of people all around the world that didn't understand what you guys are fighting and making instead of Achdus and Klal Yisrael and fighting the Supreme Court. One example that nobody understood why you guys. But I'm not saying there's some people that did understand, but a lot of people say, well, what's with Achdus? Why are you fighting the Supreme Court? So I'm saying technically could be there's no choice, okay? But right now, because Israel needs unity for to be against their enemies. But people didn't understand. That's one. Two, it's been used by organizations, yes, in America, in Europe, in all kinds of places, these progressive programs that are put in over here in Israel, okay? Foundations all around the world, Jewish foundations, Jewish power that are used by all kinds of organizations, and money that goes to court against anything that has to do with Yiddishkeit. I brought an example of cell phones that the community built themselves a system of cell phones, and they went to court, and we went through 2 years of Gehenna. Even in the Knesset, it was very difficult to get it through. A law that I could have for my son a phone that I want without an internet. What is your business? I always ask them, why are you coming into my living room? Did I did anything wrong to you that you're coming into my living room and telling me what internet I have to have in my living room? They didn't really have an answer, but it sounds good. They went to court and they said, listen, the pressuring, it's a community, you can't have it, it's against rights. And the court even bought it, that we had to pass a bill over here in the Knesset, like I said, to go again. And that came from, yes, Jews out there, that organizations, the organizations and federations and things that came in with power, and through all kinds of organizations that are doing what has been done over here. And the same thing in the Kaisel. Okay, the Kaisel, everything went through it. It come from how many, the majority, and that's something that people don't know, the majority of people in Eretz Yisrael, of course, okay, the majority are, like I said, from even the traditional people, their identity with, I would say, with religion is an Orthodox religion. When he wants a bar mitzvah, he goes to an Orthodox bar mitzvah. He wants a bris, he goes to an Orthodox. He gets married, of course, that's by law. He goes to an Orthodox rabbi. And that's most of the people that they want. And the biggest example is, you have over 4 million out of 6 million Jews that live here. Okay, 5.5, 6 million Jews that come to the Koisel every year. Once a year, they come to the Koisel. You have millions of visitors that come to the Koisel. I'm not talking about Shabbat Shabbos with yarmulkes or Yeshiva. I'm talking about traditional people. And they come to the Koisel. So that's why they're fighting the Koisel, to make the Koisel. They have a reform Koisel and give an idea for the traditional people, because people are coming more close to Yiddishkeit, and tell them, listen, there's another option. You don't have to go to those Orthodox. You don't have to have an Orthodox bar mitzvah. These are not Israeli entities. They don't have Israeli. They come from abroad. They don't come from here.
It's so interesting you say this, because literally last week I went to, my friend asked me to go to a fundraiser for, it's an organization called Tochnit Hadar. I don't know how to say it properly, but my friend went, he grew up in Brooklyn. He joined the IDF. He was very passionate about it. He's a yeshiva guy. He went, and there he started having a real struggle with his relationship with Hashem. And again, he's like a standard, think of like a literally from Flatbush. And his experience in the IDF was not tearing, but it was bringing him further away from his connection with Hashem. And I'm not saying that always happens, but I think whatever, this organization started to help people, stay grounded and have a Rebbe and things like that. Is that an ongoing issue that you're seeing in the army?
In the army, I would say there's two parts to it. Okay, one, the army was built for years, because Israel has people from all around the world. Okay, people came from East Europe, from North Africa, and other northern countries, and altogether different traditions, different types of. They tried to make it a melt pot to make everybody to be Israeli. There should be, what is it, the new Israeli? And it's again part of what I said before, because if your identity is not Judaism, so let's make it Israeli, what an Israeli is. It failed in generally, okay? Of course it failed with our community, but it's still in a certain way. And what I tell them always, when they started talking about the draft law that's been dealt now, is that the two different issues that they're always mixed. One is, how do we make sure that a person goes into the army from and he leaves from, which is a big challenge. A big challenge because they're trying to change it. Like you said before, they have different agendas, the headquarters, and of course, that's one thing. The second thing is, how do you let Yeshiva Bachrim that want to stay in Yeshiva to study? And it's two different issues that are mixed because of the law now, but they're mixed. And those are two different issues that have to be dealt with, and they have to be dealt. The truth of the matter is separately, because it has nothing to do. And again, regulations they have from units until now, okay? A commander came, made a from unit. The commander, like in every other issue, he was replaced after 2 years, like a normal organization. The next one came and said, where the commander before me got this idea, forget it. One. Another thing, that the Rosh Yeshiva Reb Dov Lando pointed out when this whole thing started in his famous letter that people were attacking, but we have to remember what he said. He said, the people in the army that you deal with, they have no power to make a deal with you because the Supreme Court comes and overrules any deal you're going to make. So let's say 2025, we're going to make a very good deal with the army. 2027, the commander changes, or a Supreme Court gets up and says, no, forget it. We think it's not equal rights, and it's not that, and it's against women, and you're saying that women are not part of these units, and then you're saying that whoever doesn't is not Shemer Shabbos is not part of the unit. No, it's against equal rights. So he has a right. He wants to be in this unit, and he's not Shemer Shabbos. He's a lady. He wants to be in this unit. And why are you telling him no? It's only for males. And who could guarantee you that 2027, that's not going to change? But that's one challenge that we have to deal with. And then about Yeshiva Bachrim, because we know what the idea in back of it, and like I said before, it's an idea, it's an agenda that they're trying to change the community because they're frightened. They're saying it. They're saying, you guys are going to be here in 30 years from now, you're going to become, who knows what, you become the majority or half of the state. We can't go around. They're sure we're going to arrest anyone that's not going to daven mincha on time, or maybe not going to daven shachris on time, or whatever. Stupid ideas, but they're going around with ideas that are that. These are issues, and like I said, that we have to deal with at a daily basis. Side of what I said before, that we have to deal with issues of organizations that are coming from outside, and they're the ones that are going to the Supreme Court and waking up all these ideas. That's on one point. The other point is that it's true. Just like I said, the Supreme Court, just like I said at the officers in the Treasury Ministry, I wouldn't say all, because there's really, that I know, generals that are from Shemer Shabbos, Iri Shamayim, Talmidei Chachomim, really, they came from the Hesder Yeshivas, but they're mamish generals that are really good, respect as a from Jew, that they're not on that agenda. But the general atmosphere in the army is, yes, what I said before. The most important thing today in the army that has high priority is what's called Ya'alon, is Yoetzet HaRamatkal L'Inyanei Nashim, making sure that women have equal, everything is equal. They could get into anywhere they wanted. They could do anything they wanted. Okay, that's the general that, and that's what we're fighting on. Just like on the civilian area, the same thing in the security area. The same ideas. That's what we're fighting.
Is there a shortage of people joining? Is that the root of why they want so many yeshiva guys to join, or that's not really the real reason over there?
No, there's two groups over here. The people that are pushing it, okay, from the treasury minister, from the legal minister, from the left wing, their nightmare is that the Haredim are going to join the army. Because they're saying what you're doing in the country, you're doing in the Knesset, next day, you're going to do in the army. And yes, and they say that. So no ladies will be let into the army by the end of the day if you guys will be the majority over there. Or who knows what's going to happen. You're really going to have to daven mincha before you go out to war, or daven shachris, or who knows what, right? And Shabbos is going to be part of the army. They're terrified. Okay, so they're doing it, yes, to put us down, to make us not legitimate, and to take away our rights, to take away our education, to take away everything. And they hope through that maybe the numbers are going to start slowing down, because people are going to, it's going to be more difficult for them to be in the community, and they're going to start leaving the community. That's one part, and that's the leftist. And the Frum community, I can't ignore. There's a big community that says, listen, we're fighting our battles alone in the army. We're fighting what's going to be Shabbos in the army, what's going to be Kashrus in the army, what's going to be Tznius in the army, we're fighting alone. Please, 60,000 people of yours are going to join us, and the whole thing's going to change. The truth of the matter is, that's a subject that we've been dealing with since, I would say, the last 150 years, since Yitzhak Sofer, right before, that how we're going to build the communities. If from inside outside or from outside inside, okay? If we're going to build inside a strong community, that's going to lighten out and be mashpia outside, or no, we're going to join together with everybody, and that's going to be mashpia. The same idea, like I said, if 50,000 get into the army tomorrow, what's going to happen? The truth of the matter is, and I say that always, if we look in a perspective of 75 years, if we started with 2% and today we're 25%, if we started that, like I said before, the Likud was a secular party in general, and today, I would say a large part of it is with the same ideas we have on Yiddishkeit, and Shabbos, and Kashrus, and things like that. Okay, if it used to be Yerushalayim had 10% Shemer Shabbos, 15% Shemer Shabbos, and today 2/3 of Yerushalayim, and just understand Yerushalayim is biggest city, it's double of the next city of Tel Aviv. Okay, Tel Aviv has 500,000 people, Yerushalayim has 1 million people, and 2/3 are Shemer Shabbos. That tells you that the inside-outside built it, and the Kiruv movement was built like that, the communities were built like that, it was built from inside-outside, it was built a lot more. We have more influence on traditional people, there's no place today with not a Frum community outside Eretz Yisrael. I remember when it was basically Yerushalayim, Bnei Brak, Tel Aviv had a little bit. You know how many shuls today in Tel Aviv are active? Things that nobody even dreamt of. And I'm talking about if you could go through the whole country. You know how many kibbutzim there's Sefer Torah today? There's shuls over there, there's mikvahs over there, kibbutzim that Shem Hashem lo yizocher, you can't even remind. So from inside outside, it's working. 1, 2, I for sure, and not only I for sure, don't have the right even. If Idealization Israel thought like that 75 years ago, they still think like that today, and it's working, we have to make sure it's going to keep on working. And yes, we're going to be mashpia more toivo brocha by doing what we're doing today, opening another yeshiva, another school, another Talmud Torah, another kindergarten, and opening these things and making sure that we should have rights and we shouldn't be not legitimate what they're trying to do now. That's our challenge. And the ways of doing it, like I said, could change every time, right? And once it's a Supreme Court, once it's a political issue, what it's a different kind. But our goal is very, very simple. We're building inside a strong community. It's got to be outside. I could really respect and understand, okay, the people of the yeshivot is there, and people of that say, join us, it's going to work. What I tell them is, I would love to, but first of all, if we're talking in the long term, what we're doing is working. And hopefully one day it's going to happen, or it's the Hashem Kamayim Lechasim. We don't feel right now enough comfortable to just say, okay, we're joining everybody and we'll be a majority. Because like I said, one Supreme Court decision or one commander's decision could make a damage. So we have to do these things slowly by slowly. You're asking if it's going to happen? Of course it's going to one day happen. Because like other things happened, but we have to do it slow by slow and making sure the community is strong enough for it.
What's your ideal? Like, what do you want someone watching this, whether they're in Israel watching this now, they're on the right side, their left side, or they're in America, the right side, left side? Like, what do you want them coming out with from this conversation?
First of all, you know, I believe that we're talking to a lot of listeners, so each one has his influence and his things he could be mashpia. I think the knowledge of people knowing what the challenge is. Sometimes when you're aboard, You don't understand what the challenge is. He says, okay, so what's the problem? They're giving you a deal. They're giving you a deal. What's your problem? You got money for Chinuch Hatzmoi, so why is Chinuch Hatzmoi going around collecting money? And I brought an example, okay? If you agree to 1, 2, 3, they'll say, okay. So just understand the concept, what we're talking about. 1. 2, to know that our biggest battle today in Eretz Yisrael is what America figured out, even the Goyim, is the progressive groups that are today represented by Reform, Conservative, or other groups, the progressive groups that are trying to push in the progressive ideas into Eretz Yisrael. Or, one more thing which is less dangerous, is an alternative for the Yiddishkeit of the Orthodox community over here. Today, every person in Eretz Yisrael knows that's Yiddishkeit. If he needs any religious service or he wants any contact with religious, which, like I'm saying, more and more people want. And of course, after what we went through the last year and a half, okay, and you can see it everywhere. The Kirov organizations are really flooded with people that are asking Tabu Ruki Toiv Hashem. They want to taste something. To know that these progressive groups are trying to build them some kind of alternative of Tikkun Olam, and each one knows in his area what he could do, okay, to stop it. But he has to just know what the challenges of his brothers in Eretz Yisrael are. And you know what? If we look in the Tanakh, it's the challenges of his children, because they're all going to end up being here.
Do you see that? Do you anticipate like a rise of people making Aliya? Because obviously in the past,
I'm asking you, okay, 100
Sure.
years ago,
Yeah.
just close your eyes and go back 100 years ago, and I would tell you there'll be over here 5 million Jews. There'll be 125,000 yeshiva bochum sitting and learning. I would tell you, right, and the Haredi Chinuch would be 500,000 children. 100 years ago, you tell me I'm insane. And I'll tell you one more secret. If I would tell you that 50 years ago, you would tell me I'm insane. After that, right? I would tell you there'll be an economy. I remember the jokes of the American community around where I grew up about Israel, right? That there's not even a traffic light 50 years ago. There was one traffic light. Coming into Neit Yerushalayim, coming into Neit Eretz Yisrael, coming into going around, we hear. We know that the Nevi'im wrote that, thousands of years ago, that's what's going to happen. So you're asking me if it's going to happen. We're in a generation where zeichet to see it in our eyes. We're here in Eretz Yisrael. We see a Torah world in Eretz Yisrael. We see a Mir Yeshiva with 10,000 Yeshiva Bachrim. We see a Cheven Yeshiva that has almost 2,000 Bachrim that are learning there. I just said a name of one of two of a couple of hundred yeshivas over here. You talk about Olam HaTorah that was never here like that years ago, right? So years ago, I don't think in Europe there was such a Olam HaTorah. I'm not sure, okay? But you're talking about, so you're asking me, anyone that could just open his eyes, everybody's going to be here. If it's going to take a day, 2, a week, or 10 years, I don't know, but it's not so far. We're seeing it happening. Everybody's going to come. Of course, each one has to see with the chinuch of his children, ask his Rav what he has to do, how to do it, to check out with chinuch. Today, there's a lot of options in it, but everything has to be that the person has to make his cheshbon. Like I said, we built from inside outside, and we believe in it, and it works. But you're asking me, if I look at the big picture, I know from inside outside it's going to work. Everybody's going to be, by the end of the day, everybody's going to know, it's there, Hashem Kamayim Lebechasim, and I know everybody's going to come to Eretz Yisrael. Because we say that 3 times a day, Tkabeh Shefer Godel, right? And Kibbutz Dochim Eretz Yisrael, everybody's going to be here.
A difficult part of this conversation is coming up, and you want to stick around for it. But first, I've dealt with a lot of car leasing companies, and no one makes it as easy and stress-free as Wheels to Lease. For over 35 years, they've been putting customers first. No pushy sales, no hidden fees, just honest service and the best deals on any make or model. Their white glove approach means you never have to step foot into a dealership, which, let's be honest, none of us want to do. Just tell them what you need and they'll handle everything, delivering your car straight to your door. That's why I trust them and why so many families do too. Call or text 718-871-8715, email inspire@wheelstolease.com, or visit wheelstolease.com/inspire, or just hit the link in the show notes to WhatsApp Saul today. They're great and they're honest and they will give you the best rates on cars. So go ahead and check them out. Now, right before we dive back in, Eretz HaKodesh is on a mission to protect the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael. Every 5 years, American Jews can vote in the World Zionist Congress elections, a powerful board that controls massive funding and policies shaping Eretz Yisrael and the Jewish world. Torah is what has kept the Jewish people alive for thousands of years. Not just our history, it's our future. But right now, groups that don't share Torah values are pushing hard to take control. Last election, 20,000 people voted for Eretz HaKodesh. This time, we need 100,000 people. The stakes couldn't be higher. If you're Jewish, 18 or older, and live in the U.S., you could vote. Every vote is a stand for Torah, for the Jewish future, and for the holiness of Eretz Yisrael. Visit eretzhakodesh.org. Of course, you can hit the link in the show notes and vote for Eretz HaKodesh today. Now back to this week's conversation. Do you think the left and the right that technically things could coexist if everyone just, I guess, in quotes, stayed in their lane? But do you feel that now the pushback is because perhaps the left is saying, hey, we want the right to do like the left? And that's why, you're saying, hey, if you want to do something, that's fine. But when it's starting to impact me personally, then that's where this complication comes in.
I think it's used again. The left over here is there's nothing in back of it. Like I said, it's a mask. Like on issues of security, they don't have what to offer. Okay, and issues that people care about, they don't have really what to offer. And I'm using it again, and we saw it in America now. Okay. And Trump came up and said, you guys are dealing about ideas that nobody really cares about. We're talking about things that people care. It happened. So what do you use? You accuse Trump, you accuse his staff, you accuse his dad. You say he's crazy, he's out of his mind. But what's with the ideas? So that's what they use over here. So they say, listen, Bibi brought a cigar from someone. He got this. He got maybe a nice article in one of these newspapers, and that's being used. We're talking about an idea, like I said before. We're talking about people that are more traditional. We're talking about people that have more emunah. I like to call them the Gusha Emuni, okay? The people that believe, and that's really the group. And like I said before, you see it in most of the right wing that or Shabbos. Today, to get a mincha in the Knesset, it was difficult. Today, there's even in the back of every wall, you see it every other room. There's a mincha, there's a ma'ariv. Okay, the people here, you see it. The Metzias in Eretz Yisrael is changing, and the Metzias over here is changing, and it's on the right wing. I'm not saying there's not some from people out there, but you could see where the people that want more Yiddishkeit in Eretz Yisrael, where they are. They're on the right wing. Where the traditional people are, they're more on the right. The mistake of people is, like I said before, is that it's not that we don't care about the public when we're building from inside outside. We believe that the building of the outside is through the inside. Our debate is not if we have to take care of, Achenu Beis Yisrael that are not, that weren't zoicha to grow up in a Torah home. That's not the debate. The debate is how do we do it? And if that's the debate, of course, we have a lot more in common with the traditional people. The traditional people vote for the right wing. I can't care less what, Mr. Netanyahu does in his private life. Who are his voters? Where is his power coming? It comes from the traditional people that care about values a lot closer than what the leftists care. And that's why it's not a question if he gives me another billion or less a billion. Because if I would be, and that Rav Shach said in his famous drasha, if it would be only for another $1 billion for yeshivas, could be to do a good deal with the left. They want to get into power, we would do it and forget everything and we'll go through. Okay, I'm not sure, but could be. But it doesn't come even over mine, because we're talking about not only building Olam HaTorah. Through building Olam HaTorah is having from inside outside. And the only way to do that is not taking $1 billion and saying, okay, you in the public schools teach more kfira. We'll take another $1 billion and you in the army are going to make it more progressive and take young soldiers and make them more far from any connection to normal Jewish life. Okay, so we're not willing to make that deal, to take it and just leave it. And that's why we go closer to people that are more traditional.
I just want to point out, I want to end on this note, and I'm curious to hear your take on it, that, obviously before the war, I think there's always complications, but before the war specifically, there was Yom Kippur davening being shut down in Tel Aviv, and there was clearly fighting, and perhaps that's why Hamas decided to attack then, that there was so much fighting. But one of the, I guess, benefits, I mean, it's terrible, but the silver lining for what's been going on is, of course, there's differences in opinion, but you're seeing a lot of people that maybe they're more in the middle. They're not sure, do I want to go to the right, want to go to the left? But you're seeing them saying, why are we fighting? Like, wait. We should be fighting with our real enemies. Ultimately, yes, even if we have a difference of opinion somewhat, but we could figure this out. And I do think, and I see it on social media. You see a lot of people that they were never connected to Judaism at all, but they're like asking people to light candles. They're asking people to put on tefillin, and there is some fusion going on now. And I'm curious if you're seeing that as well.
Yeah, there's a big difference between what's happening on the ground with the people, the population, than what's happening in the political world. Like I said, and it's very, very clear. Of course, in most, and I feel it when I go out in the streets, most of the people in Israel want unity, don't want these fights, want people being more together, want us to fight our real enemies, and they don't get into those small nuances. I said before, is the education going to be sponsored with the agreement that they made with the unions or without the agreement? They don't care less. But yes, there's still a group of progressive people that want to change the country. And that's what I'm trying to say. The idea is really, they mean us. They mean to change the atmosphere that most people became traditional, to change the atmosphere that most people are becoming more frum, to change the atmosphere that this community is growing to, Baruch Hashem, bli ayin hara, to a size that they can't take anymore. And that's why they don't like us, just like they don't like Smotrich or people like that even they go to the army. They don't like them the same. They're afraid of them just like they're afraid of us. But right now, technically, after the war, it's easier to attack us for serving in the army than attacking Smotrich, but they still do it, but in a different way, okay? So now they're attacking him for the hostages. But their danger, they're frightened. They're frightened of these huge numbers. They're frightened of what's going on. They feel they're losing their country, and they say that when we speak to them, they feel they're losing the country. There's a famous journalist that was for years very famous in Israel, Razi Barkai. So they asked him, why did you leave the TV? He's already old, he retired, but they asked him what, he says, I'm tired of running after the country that's running away from my hands.
As we finish off, I just have to ask you, do you enjoy working in the Knesset? Do you like it? Is it more challenging than it should be?
The answer is yes. I do enjoy it. And the truth is I enjoy it because generally, for us, it's even easier than other people. Two things. First of all, we have targets that we know where we want to get to. We know what we want to accomplish. I know where we want to get. It's not just coming in and making a nice press conference and saying a nice statement and getting up there, which other members have to do, and they have to get this amount of likes on Facebook. To be in a frum party over here, okay, and to having bosses in back of us, Gdolei Israel, telling us, listen, this is your goal. This is where we have to go. This is where we have to get to. Makes life more, first of all, easier and generally coming in. You feel more comfortable. You know where you want to get to. You know what your goals are, and you know what you want to accomplish. And you're not busy of seeing what's going to be the headlines the next day and on TV or whatever. And just knowing we're facing, this is where we want to get to. And yes, it's an interesting challenge, and I'm enjoying it.
Behind closed doors, is there, obviously there's a lot of different people, as it should be, from different backgrounds, helping run the Knesset. Behind closed doors, are everyone seeing eye to eye, or there's sometimes someone's going to walk into the room and, those two people won't talk? Or like, how does it, what's the real background of it?
The real background is we feel as representatives, and because we feel as representatives, we're not fighting personal, okay? I know by the end of the day, a leftist member of Knesset is representing a group of progressive people that want this country to be progressive. So first of all, I know where he is, I know where I am. Okay, so it's nothing personal. So even if theoretically I'll convince him that he's wrong, I say, sounds right, but I can't help you. I can't lose my headlines tomorrow on Channel 12. Right? Or I can't be accused tomorrow on Haaretz. So these are my voters. That's what I'm going to do. When you know that it's not on a personal level, you're representing something. It's just like lawyers in court don't take it personal. So at the end of the day, that's over here. I know people don't understand it outside. Yes, but if you work together with someone, you're together with him for 8 to 10 hours, and you know that he is representing something that you don't disagree. It doesn't have to always be at a personal level. I'm not saying there's some people that it becomes personal when they lose their common sense and don't understand, okay? But if he says, listen, you're in opposition, you have to try to disturb me, I'm a coalition. Let's do, one of the things that when I run committees over here with the opposition, they ask me, they try to get me out of control and try to pick on me or try to that. So they ask you, what are you answering on our questions? I says, I'm watching the clock and I'm talking only to the clock. You can talk to whoever you want because I'm trying to see the clock when I have to vote on it. And I can't care less. You can say whatever you want. And we're excited. I said, you did your job. You tried to disturb me. I'm not getting insulted. You can say whatever you want about me. I'm just watching the clock. Every minute I have a vote. I'll vote at this minute, and that's how it is. And it makes it, so I would say yes. And backdoors, they could agree. And backdoors, like every human beings, there's people like that, but disagreements and ideas, of course, when someone represents something, doesn't always have to end up being personal.
Thank you so much for this. I want to ask one last question, and we may not even include it, but I'm just curious, like, because I think there's a lot of complications in your job. It's not an easy job. I'm very happy podcasting. I don't envy what you have to do, but it's very important. But I just want to go back to this question. How do you handle when someone is, their son joined the army or they went back for reserves and then they got killed and they're very upset and they're very sad and they look at you and they say, okay, how could you stand for the side that's saying that yeshivas, they're not going to go to the army, but my son went to the army. And again, it's a very emotionally charged question and it's just a hard thing to answer. How do you handle that?
First of all, to be honest, emotionally, he's asking a good question and a very difficult question. And of course, on an emotional way, it's very difficult to answer a parent like that. But let's be honest. Like I said, at the end of the day, if you're talking this lifestyle of being closed in your community and not letting any outside ideas interfering your education, interfering your community, that's what brought us to where we are today, okay? And that's what clearly so decided for us. So we have another choice. If we'll find a solution how to do it, of course we'll do it, okay? Like I said I myself, the minute I left Yeshiva, I went to the army. The Gedolei Yisrael told us, as long as you're Yeshiva, you're not going. Okay, you need Yeshiva to go. So we have to try define challenges. But yes, what I tried to explain in this podcast, we're in a very larger philosophy, war and battle, that the question is how to deal with that battle. Okay, and I do believe, and they believe also, of course, religious families, that the siyata d'shmaya we have over here comes b'schus shmiras Torah mitzvahs. I'm not saying they're not shomer Torah mitzvahs. I'm saying, but the concept of influencing from inside outside, building these communities, being that Torah world, that's what keeps us as a nation. That's what keeps us as a country. That's our schus to be here. Of course, it's a matzav of b'diavad. Of course, the chatchila would be very good that we'd have, we would be after divrei Anavim, right? And we wouldn't have any of these challenges. But we do have. So I'm saying, in this time, it's the most difficult thing to explain. When you have hundreds, okay, of families that lost their children, wives that lost their husbands, it's very difficult to say that. I agree. I'm not saying, and I could feel them also. I mean, they're having a time. But if you look at the big picture, we have no other choice. Okay, we have a Supreme Court over here. We have a challenge of trying to change us. We have the only way of us surviving over here is, yes, keeping strong our communities and our education and our institutions and our yeshivas. That's the only way we're surviving. And that's why, unfortunately, I can't just say, okay, let's pass a bill. So they're going to pass a bill on drafting that yeshiva guys are not going to, that's the only way that we could survive over here.
Yitzhak Pindrus, thank you for your time and thank you for your service. I hope it gets easier and I hope you make as many people happy and confident as possible.
Thank you.
Thanks again for watching this episode. And I need to ask you, do you agree with Yitzchak? Do you think he got it wrong? Let us know in the comments. We read every single comment. And if you need a car, I'm telling you, wheels to lease are A+, and maybe A++. And if you want to take your business to the next level, call our good friends at BitBean. I'm telling you, even if you're not sure, give them a call. They are great. If you want a really incredible app, or website. Download Torah app in the link below or at torahapp.org/download. And very importantly, go to the link for Eretz HaKodesh to help Torah thrive in Israel. Yes, you can make a difference. Now, back in November, we had a meeting at the Knesset. Rabbi Center, my Rosh Yeshiva, brought me and a few friends to hear what's actually going on. And for me, it was eye-opening. We sat for a while with Yitzhak and his team, and what I personally appreciated was that they opened the floor to us to ask questions. Really, they didn't hold us back. They let us ask the tough questions, and they gave their honest opinion about what they're doing to try to help. And I think that's what's so valuable in this environment. It's so important to have a dialogue. Even if we end up disagreeing, keep in mind that ultimately, unity comes when we disagree but could also respect each other. Because we're not all the same, and we may have different values, but we ultimately usually have the same goal. Remember, inspiration is everywhere. L'chaim.
Living L'chaim.